8. Disease expert's deadly excursion. In 2006, renowned infectious disease expert Dr. Richard Root accepted an invitation to spend 2 months treating HIV patients in Botswana as part of an outreach program. He reportedly found the work to be very rewarding, but he also made some time for fun. Along with him on the trip was his wife of 2 years, Rita O'Boyle. After being widowed in 2001, Root took considerable time off from his career to grieve. Between finding a new life partner and participating in the HIV initiative, he had a new lease on life and a renewed sense of purpose that he'd been longing for. But little did he know, his new chapter would soon be disrupted by an unforeseen tragedy. 3 weeks into the trip, Root and O'Boyle went on a wildlife tour along the Limpopo River to view what the area had to offer. They each traveled in their own canoe, and Root was paddling ahead of his wife when their tour guide suddenly yelled, "Croc!" By then, it was too late for Root to avoid the 15-foot, 5 meters reptile's path. His canoe began to shake just moments before the crocodile pulled him into the water and vanished beneath the surface. Sadly, the 68-year-old's lifeless body was found near the attack site 4 days later. A Botswana police spokesperson told the South African news outlet Independent Online that there were no previous recorded crocodile attacks in the area. 7. Bear beheads missing fisherman. 54-year-old Toshihiro Nishikawa vanished in May 2023 during a solo fishing trip at Lake Shumarinai on the Japanese island of Hokkaido. A few hours after dropping him off at his fishing spot, a boat operator spotted a bear with waders in its mouth. After failing to make contact with Nishikawa, he alerted authorities, who launched a search for the bear. The search party found and killed the creature, but made a troubling discovery in the process: a severed human head. While the identity of the head has not been confirmed, Nishikawa remains missing, and the rest of the human remains have also not yet been found. The gruesome discovery came amid a spike in reported bear sightings on Hokkaido, Japan's northernmost island. As of mid-May 2023, authorities had received 339 reports since the beginning of the year, 40 more than the same time in 2022, which saw a record number of 2,240 bear sightings. Experts blame the increased sightings on numerous factors, including a low number of hunters in recent years, which has allowed the population to recover. Bears are also wandering into areas inhabited by humans a lot more than they used to in search of food. This is just one of many examples throughout the world of humans and wildlife increasingly encroaching upon one another's space, leading to higher attack numbers in both directions. 6. Halfway into a hippo. 28-year-old British expat Paul Templar moved to Zimbabwe during the mid-90s and underwent a rigorous training program to become a wildlife tour guide. He loved his job and was extremely happy with how his life was going, but his newfound happiness was rudely interrupted one day in 1996. A fellow guide had come down with malaria, so Templar agreed to take his sick pal's place and lead a canoe safari along the Zambezi River. While it wasn't his normal gig, he knew the area extremely well. Along the way, the party encountered around a dozen hippos. Templar decided to paddle around the giant mammals at a safe distance. He led the other canoes into a side channel, where he stopped to wait for the boats paddling behind him. Out of nowhere, a massive force shoved one of the canoes into the air, sending its guide into the water while the tourists managed to stay in the boat. Templar attempted to rescue the guide, who was being washed straight toward a mother hippo and her baby. He later told CNN that as he and the guide reached for one another, the water between them erupted. The next thing Templar remembered was the confusion he felt as everything around him went pitch dark. From the waist down, he felt cold moving water. From the waist up, he felt warm moisture and pressure. He realized he was in a hippo's mouth. The nightmarish attack carried on for several minutes as the large male hippo bit into Templar and spat him out repeatedly. He was rescued by one of his apprentice guides, but the guide who was thrown from the canoe was missing. Templar was seriously injured and in imminent need of medical care. Doctors predicted that he wouldn't survive, but he went on to recover after undergoing numerous surgeries and losing an arm. The missing guide's body was found 3 days later. 5. Polar bear versus human pair. In January 2023, news headlines announced the first fatal polar bear attack on a human in Alaska in 30 years. As a brutal blizzard battered the small whaling village of Wales, just below the Arctic Circle, 24-year-old Summer Miomik attempted to carry her child from a local school to a health clinic. The distance between points A and B was no more than 150 yards, 137 meters, but the storm was blowing so hard that the visibility was almost zero. Miomik was just feet away from the school's entrance when a polar bear attacked her and her child. She couldn't have seen it coming, but it happened close enough to the building for the people inside to see the attack in progress. The principal ordered for the blinds to be shut so nobody would witness the carnage going on outdoors, while several community members rushed outside and tried to scare the bear off with shovels. They briefly succeeded in stopping the attack, only for it to resume after the bear turned its aggression toward the Good Samaritans, causing them to run back inside the building. Bering Strait School District spokeswoman Susan Nedza told the Associated Press that the school's principal slammed the door in the bear's face, narrowly preventing it from getting into the school and wreaking more deadly havoc. There's no police force in Wales, so it was up to civilians to get the situation under control. A resident shot and killed the bear while it continued to maul Miomik's lifeless body. Polar bears rarely attack humans, but it's not unheard of. The tragedy in Wales has sparked a renewed interest in polar bear patrols, which are implemented in many places throughout the high north to prevent fatal conflicts between bears and humans. While attacks aren't 100% avoidable, these patrols have greatly helped to reduce deaths by actively working to keep bears out of inhabited areas. 4. Belligerent bison. During a particularly deadly week in May of 2023, 3 senior citizens were killed in bison attacks in India's Kerala state. The first victim, a 65-year-old man named Chaco, was gored while sitting on his front porch in the Kottayam district. A short while later, a 60-year-old man named Thomas was fatally attacked while working in a grove nearby. According to locals, the same bison was responsible for both attacks, which left the deceased victims with gruesome leg injuries. The creature fled after claiming its victims and managed to avoid capture by authorities. Angered by the deaths, residents staged a protest against forest officials. In the meantime, a 60-year-old man named Garvese was killed by a bison while working on a rubber plantation in the Kollam district. The offending animal was found dead shortly afterward. Conflicts between people and wild animals in Kerala and other parts of India have become an everyday problem for many, where humans are increasingly encroaching on wilderness. At the same time, species that once avoided people at all costs have become more brazen. Knowing that they can find food in populated areas, wild boars, bison, bears, tigers, and other creatures are entering inhabited settlements more than ever before. Despite the spike in confrontations, 3 deadly bison attacks is an unusually high number over a 7-day period. Authorities were at a loss to explain what specifically caused the sudden spate of fatal encounters. There are no easy answers for reducing these incidents. After having their property damaged, crops ruined, and neighbors attacked, villagers are often understandably frustrated and see intruding wildlife as a pest to simply exterminate. Meanwhile, authorities are under an increasing amount of pressure from conservationists and activists to avoid resorting to killing wild animals, especially when it comes to endangered species. There's no denying that humans are intrusive and have a tendency to force wildlife out of its habitat. Forced to share an even smaller stretch of the forest, animals have less access to food, and it's perhaps only natural that they come looking for it in villages. Some have even blamed humans exclusively for the problem, saying that we need to give nature more of its own space instead of expecting it to conveniently move out of the way for us. 3. Whomped by a wild elephant. A 23-year-old research scholar named Vishal Shrimal was walking outside the Salem Ali Center for Ornithology and Natural History near Coimbatore, India in May 2023 when a lone elephant mowed him down, seemingly out of nowhere. The wild giant trampled the young man, causing life-threatening injuries to his leg and chest. Shrimal was rushed to the hospital in critical condition and died the next day, despite doctors' best efforts to save his life. The tragedy came just 3 months after an elephant attacked and killed a 20-year-old woman named Ranjita on her way to work in Kadaba in southwestern India. 55-year-old Ramesh Rai Naila overheard Ranjita's screams and rushed to help her, but was also attacked. Naila died at the scene, while Ranjita succumbed to her injuries on the way to the hospital. Not long before that, a notorious elephant who was known for wreaking havoc across 2 districts in the state of Kerala trampled a 60-year-old man to death. The offending mammal had a 2-year history of tormenting locals and was blamed for hundreds of crop raids and at least 13 instances of property damage. Officially codenamed Palakkad Tusker 7, or PT-7 for short, the elephant was captured in early 2023 after cleverly eluding authorities on multiple occasions. It took a team of 72 forest officials to catch the beast over an 8-hour period. Finally, during the early morning hours, they managed to administer a tranquilizer dart. The team moved the rogue elephant back out into the wilderness, but it crept back up on the village just hours later. They tranquilized PT-7 once again, but this time, they decided not to release it, given its tendencies to find its way back to humans. After scrapping plans to move the animal to a distant location, authorities decided to keep it in captivity and train it as a kumki, which are used for trapping wild elephants. 2. Remote rattlesnake bite. One summer morning in 2018, 58-year-old Scott Von Cannon set out for a day hike in North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains. About 5 miles, 8 kilometers into a rattlesnake sunk its fangs into his calf. The venom took effect almost immediately, causing Von Cannon to sweat profusely and his vision to become blurry. He had no cell phone signal and was unable to dial 911. Rattlesnake bites aren't uncommon, and they're highly treatable. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, only around 5 out of the 7,000 to 8,000 rattlesnake bites that occur in America each year are fatal. But without treatment, the chances of dying are much higher. In a CNN interview, Von Cannon described crawling up the steep mountain for 2 hours as he faded in and out of consciousness and vomited every few minutes. He fired a shot from his pistol in hopes of catching someone's attention, but was unsuccessful. Luckily, Von Cannon's wife had become concerned after his failure to return home, and a rescue search was soon underway. Meanwhile, the ailing hiker accepted that he was going to die and recorded a farewell video for his family. Help arrived right after he resigned himself to doom, giving him renewed hope for survival. It took 3 hours for rescuers to carry Von Cannon down the mountain, and it ultimately took 11 hours to get him to the hospital. By then, he had gone into cardiac arrest. Doctors gave him a 5% chance of surviving. After spending 3 days in a coma, Von Cannon miraculously pulled through. He spent several months recovering before once again hitting the trails, this time with a satellite phone just in case. We have another great video lined up right after number 1. If you need more of a daily world list dosage, then be sure to stay tuned if you haven't seen that one yet. 1. Annihilated by an alligator. Most of the humans who die during encounters with alligators are mauled to death or held underwater and drowned. But striking one with a vehicle can easily kill a person. And while it's rare for this to happen, it's not unheard of. 59-year-old John Hopkins met his unfortunate fate in 2022 while driving home from his new job in the middle of the night. He was less than a mile, 1.6 kilometers from his home in Lithia, roughly 25 miles, 40.2 kilometers east of Tampa, when he crashed into an 11-foot, 3.4 meters gator in the middle of the road. Hopkins' vehicle veered off the road and rolled, landing upside down in a ditch. Both Hopkins and the gator died in the accident. The slain driver's sister, Jane Pizzinski, told Fox 13 that doctors said her brother died instantly, offering a small dose of comfort in the midst of an otherwise indescribably tragic situation. For local resident Kalen Nelson, the fatal crash was an all-too-sobering reminder of his own experience with hitting an alligator on the road. He was riding his motorcycle in the same area in 2017 when he saw a massive gator taking up half the road. Nelson failed to avoid hitting the reptile and landed on an overpass after being thrown from his bike. He was lucky to survive, but was left with lasting health problems and deals with daily pain, a reality that most people in their early 30s are decades away from experiencing. 12. Yasmin Adam. After getting her pit bull, Sir Hinkles, while he was a puppy and raising him for 9 years, 43-year-old Yasmin Adam never could have imagined that he'd turn on her. It happened one day in early 2018 when she broke up a play fight between Sir Hinkles and her 2 other pit bull mixes. The dog then started barking at Yasmin and quickly launched into a full-on attack. For almost 10 minutes, Sir Hinkles mauled his owner, leaving her badly injured. Yasmin later told Inside Edition that she knew what was happening, but was so shocked that she didn't feel any pain. She eventually gave up trying to fight the dog off and accepted that she might die. Thankfully, that didn't happen. At the time, the South Carolina woman was visiting some relatives in Broward County, Florida. Her nephew came home in the middle of the attack and called 911. Officers got to the scene and found Sir Hinkles chewing on Yasmin's arm. When an officer failed to get the dog off of her by using a baton and pepper spray, they were left with no choice but to shoot him. As neighbors gathered around because of the commotion, one resident of the apartment building told the South Florida Sun-Sentinel that Yasmin always said her dogs didn't bite. Sir Hinkles was later euthanized, and the other 2 pit bulls were taken to a local animal shelter for care, while Yasmin received medical treatment. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition after the attack and underwent emergency surgery to repair her badly damaged arms. For the next 3 weeks, doctors tried to save Yasmin's left arm, but they ultimately made the decision to amputate it. She spent 6 months in the hospital in extensive recovery. During that time, her 2 other dogs were euthanized as well. After leaving the hospital, she became vocal in her campaign to warn people about owning dog breeds that have aggressive tendencies. Before the attack, Sir Hinkles had only ever been gentle, leaving her convinced that pit bulls are capable of turning on their owners unpredictably. She doesn't agree with the belief that aggression can be avoided by raising a dog properly, because that's exactly what she did, and she was still attacked. Yasmin acknowledged that raising a dog well is certainly one factor, but she warned people not to overlook the instinctive aspect of a pit bull's behavior. As you'll learn in today's video, it only takes a few seconds for something to go fatally wrong. 11. Crazed camels. In early 2023, headlines reported that an angry camel mauled its owner's head off in Rajasthan, India. Sohanram Nayak was trying to control the animal after it broke free from its leash and started chasing after another camel. Instead of listening to him, the crazed camel picked Nayak up by the neck and threw him hard against the ground. The Times of India reported that the creature then chewed its owner's head off. Rajasthan outlawed injuring and killing camels back in 2015. But this didn't stop Nayak's relatives from beating the out-of-control pet to death for what it did. It's unclear whether any legal action was taken against them for this, though. Another camel actually bit its owner's head off in Rajasthan in 2016, after being tied up in the sweltering heat all day. As temperatures reached over 109 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 Celsius, a man named Ujaram remembered that he accidentally left the pet's legs tied. As he started untying the camel, he was attacked. As many as 25 villagers rushed to the scene in response to the commotion, but they could do little more than watch helplessly as the camel ruthlessly picked its owner up by the neck, threw him onto the ground, and gnawed his head off. They struggled with the animal for 6 hours before finally getting it under control. Camel attacks on humans apparently aren't as uncommon as you might think. About a month before Nyack was killed, a camel turned on its handler at a children's vacation camp in Siberia. The 51-year-old handler punched the creature in the face, and it responded to the unprovoked attack by biting him. Emergency room doctors were unable to save the handler. In 2022, a 32-year-old zoo owner near Freeport, Minnesota was also rushed to the hospital after his camel bit him in the head and dragged him 15 feet, 4.6 meters across the ground. The man was training the animal for transport duties when the attack happened. A zoo employee rushed over and used a wooden board to get the camel to release its grip on their boss's head. The camel instead charged at the worker, who ran away and avoided being the animal's next victim. Luckily, the zoo owner wasn't too seriously injured. Shortly after the incident, the zoo even confirmed that it still planned to keep the camel. 10. Cat scratch. One woman tried posting a video online talking about all the good qualities her pet cat has back in 2014. But her attempt backfired when the kitty attacked her on camera. As the unnamed owner began her introduction, the cat quickly bit her on the hand. She continued talking though, as if nothing had happened, saying that she got the cat for free. It came with a litter box and even some free food. As the woman was speaking, the cat continued biting and scratching her as she talked about how loving he was. Eventually, she told the kitty to go away. At some point, she stopped pretending to like the cat and admitted that he was stressing her out, big time. The owner said she was willing to pack him up right away and deliver him to whoever might want him. Several of the tens of thousands of people who saw the viral video offered to adopt the overly playful pet. Hopefully, he found a new owner he's more compatible with, and who has a little more patience for his playful nature. 9. Anna Colarusso. In 2019, while trying to prove to her boyfriend that she could actually fit inside her suitcase, 21-year-old Anna Colarusso from LaGrangeville, New York, was attacked by her 7-year-old pet cat Sam. It happened when she suddenly popped out of the luggage, which startled Sam and caused him to react instinctively, ripping into Anna's legs and leaving her covered with deep, bloody gashes. Even after the initial panic wore off, Sam was still startled. He remained cautious for a while afterward and continued to hiss and claw at his owners. As someone with a lot of experience with animals, Anna knew that it was completely normal and understandable for Sam to feel threatened, even if she didn't mean to scare him. She was also quite shaken by the ordeal, writing in a Twitter post that Sam had never acted like that in the past. Luckily, the cat eventually calmed down and seemed to have forgotten about the incident within a few hours. He crawled into Anna's bed that night like nothing had ever happened. 8. Malicious monkeys. In 2019, 72-year-old Nga Mohammed tried getting his pet monkey to climb up a tree and get coconuts in Malaysia when the primate attacked him out of nowhere, fatally severing an artery. When the man's 29-year-old son, Mohd Zakaria Nga, couldn't hear anything happening outside the home in Terengganu State, he went out to investigate and found his father unresponsive, lying in a pool of blood. The crazed monkey jumped on Mohd and started biting his neck, causing him to scream out in pain. Neighbors overheard the commotion and rushed over. Luckily, they were able to drive the monkey away. Unfortunately, by then, Mohammed was already dead, and nothing could be done. Mohd was treated at a hospital, and wildlife officials tranquilized and captured the monkey. They said it would most likely be euthanized due to its aggression levels. Sadly, this certainly wasn't the first time a pet monkey attacked its owner. In 2010, a 61-year-old Virginia man named Joe Hamrick was viciously assaulted not once, but twice by his 7-year-old service monkey Noah, who was meant to be an emotional support animal for the man's PTSD. After the first attack, The owner refused to get rid of the monkey or have him put down, even though his injuries were serious enough to land him in the hospital. During the second attack, the primate reportedly bit off a chunk of Hamrick's leg, mauled his hand, and chewed his pinky finger off. Hamrick finally admitted that the pet monkey was unsafe and handed Noah over to Peggy Rice, the founder of the nonprofit American Private Haven. Rice later wrote that Hamrick won a battle against Chesapeake County authorities years before over his right to have Noah as an emotional support animal. She said that at one point, Hamrick had 2 monkeys, but had accidentally killed the first one. It's believed that Noah saw it happen and never trusted Hamrick again. Knowing that mistrust developed between Hamrick and Noah, Rice tried to take action to have Noah move to a more appropriate environment. After the first attack on Hamrick, she called animal control and warned them, but the agency told her that there was nothing they could do, since Hamrick hadn't broken any laws that they knew of. While Rice couldn't prevent a second attack, she luckily was able to give Noah a safe home with other monkeys of his kind. 7. Buck the chimpanzee. 911 operators in Pendleton, Oregon, got an unusual call one day back in 2021 from 68-year-old Tamara Bragoiti, who said that her pet chimpanzee, Buck, attacked her 50-year-old daughter. She reported that the victim had injuries on her torso, arms, and legs. When the dispatcher asked Bragoiti if she was helping put pressure on her daughter's wounds, she replied, "I'm trying to guard her from a 200-pound, 90.7-kilogram ape. So I can't really put pressure on it, ma'am." Umatilla County Sheriff's deputies got to the scene and found Buck wandering around in a fenced area. With Bragoiti's permission, they euthanized the creature so first responders could safely get to the bite victim and offer help. Both women were taken to the hospital with injuries, and Bragoiti's daughter faced a lengthy recovery, which included physical therapy. Bragoiti raised Buck for 17 years leading up to the attack. She told the East Oregonian that she was devastated to lose the chimp, who was like a son to her, but she was grateful to law enforcement for doing what was necessary. She credited both the sheriff's deputies and paramedics for saving her daughter's life. Broken owner said she didn't know what even provoked the attack. Bragoiti refused to go into detail on how she obtained Buck as a pet. The nonprofit People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, tried convincing authorities to take the chimp away from Bragoiti in the past. In a letter to the state's agricultural department, the agency accused the woman of violating her license to own an exotic pet and lying on her application to own Buck. Oregon outlawed owning exotic pets back in 2010, with only a small handful of exceptions. Anyone who already had an exotic animal license was exempt from the new law, which included Bragoiti. The story's sad ending only seems to support the claim among activists that keeping a wild animal in captivity is incredibly dangerous. 6. Lion lashes out. 72-year-old British expat Mike Hodge has a passion for animals. He founded the Marikele Animal Sanctuary in South Africa, which is home to several exotic big cats, primates, and even birds. While giving a tour to a truck full of visitors one day back in 2018, he went inside a lion's enclosure to see what the big cat was sniffing in the corner of the cage. The lion, named Shamba, turned its attention toward Hodge once he was close and started to chase after him. Hodge ran toward the enclosure's door, but was unable to escape the lion, who dragged him across the ground and into some bushes, as horrified onlookers watched, unable to help. At some point during the attack, Hodge went limp. Shamba eventually dropped him, and an employee shot and killed the big cat, who Hodge and his family had raised from when he was just a cub. Hodge was rushed to the hospital, where he spent time healing from injuries to both his neck and jaw. A friend of the Hodge family told the U.S. Sun that the wildlife enthusiast was no fool when it came to being around lions, but clearly something went wrong. In a statement, a spokesperson for the family said that Hodge is still passionate about animals even after the gruesome attack. 5. Belligerent bear. One day in 2009, 37-year-old Kelly Ann Waltz was cleaning up her captive black bear's cage outside her home in Ross Township, Pennsylvania, when the animal suddenly lashed out and mauled her to death. Waltz and her husband Mike ran a hilltop menagerie that was also home to a tiger and mountain lion. She had cleaned the bear's 15 by 15 foot, 4.6 by 4.6 meters enclosure countless times in the past, but she made a deadly mistake the day of the attack. To distract the 350-pound, 158.8-kilogram pet, she always threw a handful of dog food to the opposite corner of the cage she wanted to clean. This time, for whatever reason, the bear turned on Waltz. Her 2 young children and a friend actually saw it happen and ran for help. A neighbor shot and killed the bear, but it was too late to save the woman. She was pronounced dead at the scene. After the tragedy, authorities revealed that Kelly's husband, who was licensed to own, sell, and display exotic animals, allowed his permit to expire the previous year. In Pennsylvania, this offense is equivalent to a traffic ticket, so no legal action was taken. Scott Castone, the neighbor who shot the bear, told the Philadelphia Inquirer that there had never been any issues with the animals in the decade leading up to Kelly's traumatic death. 4. Tiger strikes twice. When a captive Siberian tiger mauled a child not far from Toronto in 2004, it sparked a heated debate over exotic pet ownership. The victim and his family were at the home of the tiger's owner, Norman Buwalda, who had the big cat on a leash. Buwalda lost control of the animal when it decided to lunge at the family and attack the little boy. He miraculously survived with serious head and neck injuries. No charges were filed, but the community was furious that Buwalda was allowed to keep ownership of his exotic pets. He was legally licensed to own the creatures, so authorities said there was nothing they could do. Citizens of the town where Buwalda lived tried to get a bylaw passed to ban exotic animal ownership, but he fought hard against it, and their attempts to have the pets taken away failed. 6 years later, an animal that was thought to be the same tiger who mauled the first victim attacked its owner. Buwalda was feeding the 660-pound, 300-kilogram big cat when the incident happened. A relative found the 66-year-old dead and managed to separate Buwalda's body from the tiger by closing a set of doors that divided its enclosure into 2 areas. The tiger initially stayed at the property following Buwalda's death, but was eventually removed by the Ontario Provincial Police, along with 2 other lions. 3. Tiger charity gone wrong. Patty Perry founded a wildlife sanctuary called the Wildlife and Environmental Conservation Inc. in Moore Park, California. During an event one day for the park's donors back in 2019, 2 of the 4 tigers that lived at the facility attacked her and pinned her to the ground. She was later taken to the hospital for multiple lacerations. Perry had raised the tigers since they were small cubs and insisted that they were just playing during the attack. She entered the enclosure, which she had done countless times before, when a Bengal tiger wrapped its giant paws around her legs, knocking her off balance. Another tiger then pounced on top of her, and the 2 big cats continued to pull on her until guests helped her get to safety. The sanctuary's lawyer, Michael Bradbury, told local news station KABC that it was obvious to Perry the attack was playful, not aggressive. But he acknowledged that the incident was probably scary to those who saw it, and that they must have thought the worst. Bradbury also said that nothing like this had ever happened before, and that Perry was devastated by the entire situation. 2. Deranged deer. Something went terribly wrong one morning in 2019 when 47-year-old Paul McDonald went outside to feed his pet wapiti, a cross between an elk and a red deer, on his property in Wangaratta, Australia. After realizing that something was off, His wife Mandy and his son Ethan went outside to investigate. When they saw Paul being attacked, Mandy rushed over and tried to save him while Ethan ran for help. By then, Paul was fatally wounded, so the deer focused its attention toward Mandy. Ethan rushed back over and saved his mom by hitting the creature in the head with a giant slab of wood. A responding officer shot and killed the deer, and Mandy was airlifted to the hospital with critical injuries to her upper body and leg. She almost lost her life. The deer, which the family had owned for 6 years, was the family's only wapiti. Experts say that deer attacks are rare, but not completely unheard of. The chance of one happening increases during mating season, which was the case when the attack on Paul and Mandy went down. 1. Florida man's fatal encounter. Classified by experts as the world's dangerous bird, cassowaries are massive flightless birds that stand up to 6 feet, 1.8 meters tall, and can run at speeds up to 31 miles per hour, 50 kilometers per hour. It was among the multiple exotic bird species that 75-year-old Marvin Hajos raised on his farm outside of Alachua, Florida. One morning in 2019, Hajos was killed by one of his cassowaries. According to investigators, he fell between 2 cassowary enclosures and was attacked through the chain fence. Responding deputies had to dodge at least one angry bird to help Hajos. Unfortunately, it was too late to save him. Cassowaries are known for their immense strength, speed, and aggression, but experts say they typically prefer to avoid humans instead of attacking them. When Hajos fell, it might have provoked the bird's aggressive behavior. An autopsy revealed over a dozen lacerations all over the man's body, including on his face, neck, back, abdomen, thighs, legs, and one of his arms. The bird cut an artery, which isn't surprising considering how cassowaries' dagger-like nails measure several inches long. After the tragedy, the state auctioned off the 100 or so creatures from Marvin's farm, which included other cassowaries, kookaburras, macaws, and lemurs. Unlike many other animals that attack humans, the cassowary that killed Hajos was not put down and was among the birds that were sold. Although cassowaries are classified as Class II wildlife, which means they can pose a threat to humans, Hajos avoided the permit requirements to own one, based on an agricultural exemption that was granted to him. The auction was carried out in accordance with his wishes for the animals to be sold after his death. Thanks for watching. Which one of these animal encounters was the craziest to you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.